Have you ever felt a profound loneliness, a gnawing emptiness, even when surrounded by those you love? What if the very pillars of your life, friends, family, familiar comforts, suddenly crumbled, leaving you isolated? We often imagine figures of immense spiritual strength as immune to such human frailties, standing unwavering amidst any storm. But what if one of the greatest apostles, the rock upon which Christ built his church, knew this desolate feeling intimately? What if Peter, the bold fisherman, the first among the apostles, experienced a loneliness so profound that it tested the very foundations of his faith, only to emerge stronger, anchored not in human connections, but in the enduring presence of a God? This isn't just a theological musing, it's a deeply human story that resonates with the quiet struggles many of us face in our own lives, a testament to a divine companionship that transcends earthly bonds. Imagine the bustling streets of Capernaum, the familiar faces of his fellow fishermen, the comforting presence of his wife and family. This was Simon Peter's world, a tapestry of human connection, woven with shared laughter, struggles, and the simple rhythm of daily life. Then came the call. "Follow me," Jesus said, and Peter, with an impulsiveness that would define much of his journey, dropped his nets and left everything behind. Initially, he was never truly alone. He had the constant companionship of Jesus, the camaraderie of the other disciples, the vibrant energy of the nascent Christian community. His life was brimming with purpose, miracles, and the exhilarating presence of the Messiah. His friends were his fellow apostles, his family the burgeoning community of believers. He was at the epicenter of a spiritual revolution, seemingly immune to isolation. Yet, as we delve into the depths of Scripture and the early church's understanding, a different picture of Peter emerges. A man who, despite his pivotal role, faced moments of profound solitude and abandonment. Consider the Garden of Gethsemane, when even his closest companions, James and John, succumbed to sleep, leaving him alone with Christ in his darkest hour. Or the harrowing moments after Jesus' arrest, when Peter, in a desperate attempt to save himself, denied his Lord not once but 3 times. In that instant he was utterly alone, cut off not only from his master, but also from his own sense of self-worth and belonging. The weight of his betrayal, the crushing realization of his own weakness, must have been an unbearable burden. His friends had scattered, his family remained in the shadows, and even his spiritual anchor seemed to have slipped away. But it was precisely in this crucible of isolation and despair that Peter's true strength was forged. His story isn't one of perpetual companionship, but of a journey through loneliness that ultimately revealed an unbreakable bond with God. It's a narrative that speaks to anyone who has felt the sting of abandonment or the quiet ache of solitude. For Peter, the departure of friends and the absence of immediate family didn't signify a void, but an invitation to lean into a divine relationship that proved to be the ultimate source of his resilience and unwavering faith. His journey from the fishing boat to the leader of the early church is a powerful testament to the truth that even when all human connections falter, God remains, a steadfast presence in our deepest loneliness, transforming our isolation into an extraordinary wellspring of strength and purpose. The Gospel accounts paint a vivid picture of Peter's early life, a life deeply rooted in the tangible comforts of human connection. He wasn't some isolated hermit. He was a man of the people, a fisherman whose days were filled with the rough camaraderie of his fellow laborers, the familiar rhythm of the sea, and the warmth of his home in Capernaum. Think about it for a moment. This was a man with a wife, whose mother-in-law Jesus himself healed. He had brothers, fellow fishermen like Andrew, who shared not just a trade but a life. His world was intrinsically woven with the fabric of his community, his family, and his friends. This isn't just biographical detail, it's crucial for understanding the profound impact of what was to come. Imagine the bustling marketplace, the shared meals, the simple joys and hardships of daily existence. Peter's identity, his sense of belonging, was deeply intertwined with these relationships. When Jesus called him saying, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men," Peter's decision was monumental precisely because it meant leaving much of that familiar world behind. He traded the predictable security of his nets for the unpredictable journey of discipleship. Yet even in this radical shift, he wasn't truly alone. He immediately found a new, intense form of companionship in the 12 apostles. These weren't just colleagues. They were brothers in spirit, united by a shared mission and an extraordinary leader. Consider the intimate moments: Jesus teaching on the boat, the disciples sharing meager meals, their debates and laughter on dusty roads. Peter was right there, often at the forefront, his voice boisterous, his heart passionate. He was part of an inner circle with James and John, witnessing miracles, experiencing transfiguration, and being privy to Christ's most profound teachings. This was a new kind of family forged in faith and purpose. The early days of his discipleship were characterized by an almost constant presence of others, a vibrant energy that must have filled any void left by his previous life. He was surrounded by those who believed, who witnessed, who shared the awe and wonder of being in the Messiah's presence. This initial foundation of human connection, both his earthly family and his newly formed spiritual one, provided Peter with a sense of security and belonging. It was his earthly anchor, a testament to the fact that even those destined for extraordinary spiritual heights are, at their core, deeply human, reliant on the warmth and support of others. This context is vital because it sets the stage for the dramatic and painful moments when these anchors, one by one, began to slip away, forcing Peter to confront a different kind of strength, one rooted not in what he had, but in who he knew. His journey wasn't just about faith. It was about the profound human experience of loss and the subsequent discovery of an even deeper, more enduring connection. We've seen Peter, surrounded by the comforting embrace of family and friends, a pillar of his community. But what happens when those pillars crumble? This is where Peter's story takes a poignant turn, one that resonates deeply with a universal human experience, the sting of abandonment and the ache of loneliness. It's a feeling we've all encountered, perhaps in varying degrees. The friend who drifts away, the family member who misunderstands, the moment we feel utterly alone in a crowd. Peter, the Rock, was about to experience this in the most agonizing way imaginable. Consider the events leading up to Jesus' crucifixion. The disciples, once a tightly knit group, began to scatter. In the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus needed the most, Peter, James, and John, the inner circle, could not stay awake, leaving their master to face his agony alone. But Peter's ultimate moment of isolation arrived when he stood in the courtyard, warming himself by a fire, and denied Jesus not once, not twice, but 3 times. Imagine the crushing weight of that moment, the rooster's crow, the piercing gaze of Jesus, and the sudden, overwhelming realization of his own betrayal. Have you ever felt so ashamed, so profoundly alone in your failure, that it seemed the very ground beneath you gave way? Peter's denial wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was an act that severed his immediate connection to his Lord, and by extension, to his core identity as a disciple. The other disciples had fled. His old life, his fishing community, was far removed from this crucible of faith and fear. In that specific instant, Peter was stripped bare of every human comfort, every familiar face. He was in a spiritual wilderness, isolated by his own actions and the terrifying reality of what was unfolding. This wasn't merely physical separation, it was a profound existential loneliness. His closest companions were gone. His master was being led to his death, and Peter himself had disavowed everything he stood for. It's a powerful reminder that loneliness isn't always about being physically alone. It can be a deep, internal chasm, a feeling of disconnection even when others are near. Visual transition, a sudden, sharp sound effect, perhaps a rooster's crow, or a clanging gate, followed by a momentary darkening of the screen before slowly brightening again. This raw, exposed state of Peter's soul mirrors our own vulnerabilities. We build lives around relationships, careers, and passions, and when these foundations are shaken by loss, by betrayal, by unexpected life changes, we can find ourselves in a similar void. The story of Peter's denial and subsequent loneliness isn't just an ancient biblical account, it's a timeless reflection of the human condition. It speaks to our deepest fears of being abandoned, of failing, and of facing the world without the comforting presence of those we cherish. Yet it is precisely in this nadir of human connection that Peter's journey reveals an astonishing truth, a truth that offers profound hope in our own moments of solitude. His abandonment by man paved the way for an unbreakable bond with the divine. We've seen Peter at his lowest, adrift in the desolate sea of denial and loneliness. But this isn't where his story ends. Far from it. This is precisely where the narrative pivots, revealing the profound truth at the heart of our message. When friends and family leave, God remains. Peter's greatest strength wasn't found in his human connections, as comforting as they were, but in the unwavering, merciful presence of God. This isn't just a comforting thought. It's a truth powerfully demonstrated in Scripture and the consistent teaching of the Church. Think about the moment of Peter's restoration. After his resurrection, Jesus appeared to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. He didn't rebuke Peter. He didn't scold him for his denials. Instead, Jesus asked him 3 times, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" John 21:15-17. This profound scene is a mirror image of Peter's 3 denials. But now, each denial is replaced with an affirmation of love and a command to feed my lambs, tend my sheep. This divine encounter wasn't about Peter's past failures. It was about God's relentless grace and unwavering call. Jesus met Peter in his brokenness and rebuilt him, not with human reassurance, but with divine affirmation. This wasn't an isolated incident. Throughout Peter's life, even amidst intense persecution and the loss of fellow apostles like James, God's presence remained. When Peter was imprisoned by Herod Agrippa, facing imminent execution, it was not human intervention that freed him, but a miraculous angelic rescue. Acts 12:6-11. The chains fell away, the prison doors opened, and Peter walked out, a testament to a divine hand at work. This demonstrates a crucial point. God does not abandon his faithful, even when all human support seems to vanish. The very foundation of the church, entrusted to Peter, was built not on his personal strength alone, but on the enduring power and fidelity of God. So far, we've explored Peter's reliance on human connection, and then the painful reality of his profound loneliness after his denials. Now, we're diving into how God's steadfast presence became his ultimate strength. This journey from human dependency to divine reliance is central to understanding Peter's transformation. The Catechism of the Catholic Church reminds us that God is faithful, CCC 2 and 12. This faithfulness is what sustained Peter. His ultimate strength came from his ability to rely entirely on God, even when facing martyrdom. Tradition tells us that Peter, when crucified, asked to be crucified upside down, deeming himself unworthy to die in the same manner as his Lord. This final act of humility and unwavering faith isn't the act of a man who was abandoned. It's the testament of a man who knew he was never truly alone. His strength in that ultimate moment stemmed from a profound understanding that even in death, he was united with Christ. The very loneliness he experienced earlier became the catalyst for a deeper, more profound relationship with the divine, proving that God truly does remain, a constant, powerful presence that can transform our deepest vulnerabilities into our greatest strengths. This is the enduring legacy of Peter, a message of hope for anyone navigating their own moments of isolation. We've explored how Peter found profound strength in God's unwavering presence, even after human companionship faltered. But here's a crucial nuance, an often missed perspective. Peter's loneliness wasn't merely a hardship to be endured. In a paradoxical way, it became a catalyst for his spiritual growth and an essential component of his ultimate leadership. Many of us dread solitude, viewing it as a void to be filled, a sign of weakness or social failure. Yet Peter's journey suggests that true spiritual depth often flourishes in those very moments of isolation. Think about it. When Peter was surrounded by the noise and demands of the crowd, or even the familiar presence of his fellow disciples, his focus could easily be fragmented. His impulsive nature, while endearing, sometimes led him to speak or act without full reflection. Recall his boastful declaration at the Last Supper. "Even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble." Matthew 26:33. This overconfidence, born perhaps from the comfort of being in Jesus' immediate presence and surrounded by his peers, quickly dissolved under pressure. It was only when stripped of these external validations, when he was truly alone with his failure, that a deeper transformation could begin. This brings us to a common misconception that spiritual strength is built solely in community and constant interaction. While community is vital, Peter's story highlights that moments of profound solitude, even painful ones, can become our greatest teachers. It was in the quiet aftermath of his denial, away from the gaze of others, that Peter likely wrestled with his weakness, experienced deep contrition, and came to a profound realization of his absolute dependence on divine mercy. This was not a passive waiting. It was an active internal struggle that reshaped his very being. This aloneness forced Peter to look inward, and more importantly, upward. It cultivated a deeper, more personal intimacy with God, stripped of any superficiality that communal worship or the direct presence of Jesus might have unintentionally fostered. It's a profound lesson for us. Sometimes the removal of earthly supports isn't a punishment, but an invitation. An invitation to discover a strength that lies beyond our social circles, our achievements, or even our families. A strength rooted in an unshakable personal communion with the divine. Peter learned that the Lord was not just present when the crowds cheered or miracles happened. He was present in the silent agony of a repentant heart, in the quiet despair of feeling abandoned. And that, surprisingly, was where his true authority and enduring resilience as the rock of the church were ultimately forged. His weakness, exposed in solitude, paved the way for a strength that was truly from God.